Okay, I got the shocks rebuilt. These are the layout of the front shocks, and I didn't really go through the rebuild process of the shock because it's exactly the opposite of the dismantling that we went over earlier. So you just take all those parts that we pulled out in that order, which I laid them out on the previous video. You got a rebuild kit. It comes with all those parts, and then you put them back in. I did open it up and pour out the fluid and swabbed it all out really clean and good with some swabs that I have, and then made sure that they weren't leaking and that they were nice and slick. Look at that. Boom. All right, so this is the front shock, as you can tell, because it's so small. I already went ahead and put this one together as a trial before the video, just to make sure. It is still missing a couple of small pieces. Screw that goes in for this clamp. So we can go ahead and put that in. Tighten it up with a Allen key. You don't want to over tighten these, of course. Once again, they are just going into nylon, so we want to make sure that we're not hurting anything, but just goes right through those, pulls it together, tighten it up flush. My thought process is, if I get it flush, and this is so hard to see, I get that nut, that bolt, when it starts coming out on the other side, I just want it flush right there. And that way I can tell if I need to go tighter or looser, I have a gauge, a starting point to know where I am. So once I get that flush, I stop. And what you don't want it to do, of course, is just ride up and down on this shaft. If you can move it like that, see how I just moved that? That's what you don't want. You really don't want that moving up and down on the shaft. You want it locked in. So now I know, okay, I'm going to tighten it back up some. So now what my gauge is going to be is on this side where I've got this space, I'm going to bottom that out. So I'll tighten that all the way down to where that flushes up, and then I'll try it again. And it's still movable. So now I just count turns. So put this wrench in there like that, 12 o'clock position, and do 1 turn, 2 turns. Pull it back out, try it again. Now it moves the whole shock. All right, so we're going to leave it there. Awesome. Okay, so that took care of that. And then in the bottom, we have this little jewel here that pops into the bottom. It doesn't really matter which side you put it on, because these this thing will turn around. It free spins in there, so you can pop it in either side that you want. It's a pain in the butt to do, though. That is extremely tight. I can't believe how hard that is to get in and out. Let me grab a pair of pliers. I'm not going to put any chapstick on this one because I got enough shock oil on my hands. It's actually doing a fine job with that. So we'll see if we can just get it started with this. Well, we can if I don't adjust these down where I need them to be. I just want to get it started, and then I will finish the job. There we go. Just like that. So it's in there, and like I said, it has enough shock oil on it. It's pretty lubricated up very well. So that is a completed shock. So to get to that far, all we do, here's our devices here laid out in order. I'll take my ring, slide it on first. Okay, I'll put the screw in when we're complete. Slide the shock spring on. The spring cap, push it down to where I have access to the threads. Take this and it threads right on there. Now this is going to turn, so I just use it, hold it with my finger, and just to get this started. But in a few minutes, it's going to overcome with friction, and I can't hold it just with my finger with the oil. So what you need to do is hold it with a pair of pliers. But you need to hold it just as close to the threads as you can, because if it ever slides and it does mar up, then that end will never get up into the shock where the gaskets are, so it's no problem. The last thing you want to do is grab a hold of it way up here, and then you're going to mar up your rod, and you'll possibly have a leak with some shock oil. So once I get that on there, of course I want to hold it with my other hand because I'm left-handed. Let's try, I'm not left-handed. All right, we'll just turn the nylon piece with my left hand because it doesn't require a lot of strength. It's just nylon. I'm trying to hold the little rod in there just as tight as I can with these pliers though, because I don't want it to slip at all. So once I get that tight, then I let go of it and it's captured. All right, so now we have a working shock. Once again, we can go ahead and put this piece in right off the bat if we'd like. Might as well, we're here. Put some shock oil on it because it's once again going to be very tight to get in there. And push it through just enough to get it started and finish with my finger. So that's captured in. And then the screw to hold the clamp in place where I need it. Now on these front ones, the clamps just go all the way up to the very top. And on the bottom ones you have to have some space, or the back ones I should say. So here I'm going to do some starting points where I left off with the other one. So I'm going to bottom this one out completely right there. Then I'm going to put this at 12 o'clock noon, just like that. And then it's going to go one and two. Okay. All right, and now something to be thinking about is when these go on, these caps can't turn. They are threaded on there and locked on tight. So wherever you put this piece, that shock right here is going to line up. So, and what I mean by that is, spin my buggy over here, it goes on this shock tower. Okay, so this is going to go up here. So you need to think about where you want this and if you need to adjust it later. If you want to loosen this up and push it down to tighten this spring, you can't have this rotated around in a way where you can't get to it with a wrench. So you got to think about that. This goes on here with a screw coming through the shock tower through this hole. So that's the relationship. Now I have this pointing directly out to the side where I can get a wrench in and get to it. All right. This one here is off a little bit. You see that? So I actually should loosen this up a little bit and spin it around so that it is perpendicular, just like this one. All right. So take that, make it perpendicular to this one, or parallel, I should say, not perpendicular. And then tighten it back up. To where it won't move. Okay. And now when I put that one on over here, that one will be to, I can get a wrench into the front of it. And over here, I can get a wrench in to the side of it. Okay. Now the other thing to do these, that's what this line is here. So I take a bolt washer because it's going through this fiberglass. spin it through there because it is threaded. It was so tight, the original. So you get that in there. And it goes out towards the front because that's where we want the shocks, is in the front of the vehicle. All right. Snug that up into the framework. It's going against fiberglass, so I'm going to put another washer. Then we're going to put a locking nut on there. It's a regular nut. I call it a locking nut because it's going to lock this piece from turning. And I got a nut driver. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten this up onto the shock tower. There we go. And then we're going to put another washer because this unit's going to push up against it, just like that. And then that is where this goes. And this is something that you can do. I have this pointing to the outside. If with enough room, if that'll fit on there, you see that won't go. That will not fit between the shock tower and there. So that I'm going to have to turn around and use on the other side. This one is the one. So one of them is going to be exactly off from the other one. And we put that on, and then it has nylock. It calls for a nylock locking nut. If I had some nylon ones and I dyed them black, so this I think is a very great place to use it because it will lock down, and it is black nylon, so it's going to look what I think would be just freaking awesome. So there is that, and it's flush, all black. Okay, and then the bottom piece goes into the car down here with this rod. Turn this around where you can see it. So there's a hole right here. This rod, which I also coated with the black graphite, it slides right down into here. And you got to pay attention because this rod has a little bitty indentation just on one end. That indentation is so that when it slides in here, that indentation all the way through lines up with that hole in the top, which is right there. And then we have a threaded keeper screw that threads down from the top and locks this, pushes in that indentation and locks this and doesn't let it come out. So it slides through the back of the four-piece, through the shock keeper, and then locks into the front, and then that keeper screw locks it in there. And that's how we hold it together. All right, so I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to do the other side, and then I'll show you that when we start the back.